6:30, exactly on time. Please give your attention to the short video. Jackie, please conduct roll call after the video.
Conducted as a participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Participation. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested does not condone hate speech in any form and organization. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Participation. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested does not condone hate speech in any form and organization. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Participation. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested does not condone hate speech.
Once we get this under control, we'll move on to the next item.
To make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. And in Zoom, where citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested does not condone hate speech.
Once we get this under control, we'll move on to the next item.
To make life better for all members of our community. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility.
Wow, that was intense.
And in Zoom, where citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested does not condone hate.
I hear a little bit of voice in the background there, but that's okay. Hopefully it's over. Okay, Jackie, let's do roll call.
Present.
Here.
Here.
Conradi.
Here.
Diaz.
Here.
Doe. Here. Fahey. Greenblatt. Here. Knapp. Member Knapp. LeBow. Here. McLean.
Here.
Nelson. Ortiz. Panganaban.
Present.
Thank you. Member Dixit.
Here.
Member Rouhani.
Here.
Member Sarmiento.
Here.
Member Wirtz.
Here.
Member Kursavan. Here. Chair Weeks.
Here.
Thank you. We have all members present except for we have members Fahey absent, Knapp absent, as well as members Nelson and Ortiz.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that is not part of the agenda? If so, please submit a speaker card or raise your virtual hand and staff will, or I will call upon you. Jackie, do we have any written or remote public comment today?
We have not received any written public comment, and I believe, did you have a public comment, sir? No.
While they're discussing that, we are going to conclude public comment. We are now moving on to consent calendar items. Are there any changes or comments from the committee on the consent calendar? Does anyone want to pull an item, or is there any other changes you guys would like to see? Okay, Looks good. Is there anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that is not part of the agenda at this time? If you'd like to, please submit a speaker card or raise your virtual hand, and staff or I will call upon you. Do you have any written or remote public comment for this item?
I have not received any written public comment, and I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, great. So at this time, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Second.
Okay, Jackie, please conduct a roll call vote.
Okay, Member Golier,
Aye.
Member Armijo,
Yes.
Member Boardman,
Yes.
Member Chen,
Yes.
Member Conradi,
Yes.
Member Diaz,
Yes.
Member Doe,
Yep.
Member Fahey, Member Greenblatt,
Yes.
Member Knapp, Member LaBelle,
Yes.
Member McLean,
Yes.
Member Nelson, Member Ortiz, Member Panganaban, Member Dixit,
Yes.
Member Rahani,
Yes.
Member Sarmiento,
I abstain.
Member Wirtz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kursavan,
Yes.
and Chair Weeks.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously with Member Sarmiento abstaining and members Ortiz, Nelson, Knapp, and Fahey absent.
Thank you. That moves us on to the regular agenda items. The first item is an informational item presented by CCTA staff Jay Zhang to provide an update on project monitoring.
Good afternoon, committee members, Chair Weeks, Jay Zhang, Associate Engineer with CCTA. This is a standing item that we present at every TCC meeting, the project monitoring update. The attachments are in your packet from page 23 to page 31. If you can see the screen, it should be in the packet. The first item is the 2024 STIP project updates. Again, not a lot of update from last time. The only update we have is that the CDC approved BART's $9.5 million construction allocation request on the next generation Fairgates project. Next, we have the OBAG 2 and OBAG 3 projects. The fiscal year 22, there are only 2 projects remaining on this list. One from San Pablo, the Giant Road Pavement Rehab Project, and then the Richmond 13th Street Complete Streets Project. Richmond and CCTA staff were able to meet with MTC staff to discuss the 13th Street project, and we were able to identify a plan to move forward. The city plans to submit construction request for authorization by end of June and construction to start by the end of the year. And then for the fiscal year 23 projects, I'm happy to report that all projects actually have been successful in receiving their E76s and they're moving towards project completion. And then for future fiscal year projects, no issues to report at this time. However, I just want to mention for the 4 projects in the fiscal year 25 list, the E76 obligation is due by the end of the year. So you might want to start the field review process in the summer in order to avoid any delays. And then next up, we have ATP projects. Again, no issues to report here. The 2 projects that are highlighted are both going to the June CDC for either extension or allocation request. And then the last attachment is the FHWA inactive project list. If you have a project on this list, we ask that you work with Caltrans local assistants to either submit project invoices or justifications. I think there's a new list that just updated on May 13th, so this one I'm currently showing might already be outdated. So if you have time, please check the Caltrans website for the latest list. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Jay. Are there any comments from the committee at this time? Okay. If anyone would like to speak from the public, please submit a speaker card or raise your virtual hand, and staff or I will call upon you. Jackie, do we have any written or remote public comment?
We have not received any written public comment, and there are no hands raised.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Okay, the next item is an informational item presented by CCTA staff, Colin Clark, to present the quarterly project status report for the Transportation for Livable Communities and Pedestrian, Bicycle, and Trail Facilities projects for January through March 2024. Colin,
Good
take it away.
afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. So this is a regular standing item typically at the Planning Committee and the Authority Board in terms of the quarterly project status report for TLC and PBTF. In this case, in the past, my predecessor had brought this to this body from a projects monitoring status reporting context. And as you know, with 2020 and the years following in terms of project delivery, the pandemic and the allocation plan and the movement of funds, including in 2021, the MTC Quick Strike Safe and Seamless funds kind of changed things in terms of project delivery. So so there's been a little bit of time since we've brought this to this body, but in terms of the QPSR, today we just wanted to highlight the three projects that had been listed in the not started category, just to double check on the status. And so staff has met with City of Walnut Creek and City of Pinole on the projects, and there's not much kind of more to say other than the projects are getting delivered, but want to give each of the cities an opportunity to add anything they want.
Sure, I'll start. So we have two projects at City of Walnut Creek, thanks to some TLC funding. One of them is called the Better Bus Stop Project. So that one really started, it got initialized kind of in the planning phase back in 2019, end of 2019, beginning of 2020. A lot of the planning efforts that were conducted were pre-pandemic, and because this is for bus stop improvements, we all know how COVID has impacted, bus ridership. What we're really trying to do is make sure that we are delivering improvements at bus stops that make sense, post-COVID ridership, and then also we want to align those actual design improvements with new guidelines that are coming out thanks to County Connection. So we want to utilize what County Connection would like to see at those bus stops and then deliver those improvements. So we would like to start design and construction and really anticipate that over the next couple of years. And then there's a Walker Avenue sidewalk improvement, and we did have to do some substantial value engineering for that project, so we've been cutting down scope on that one. But we're prioritizing the traffic safety elements, which would be a pedestrian improvement. And we're anticipating construction next summer.
Thanks for that. So it sounds like City of Pinole is online, and I'll have, Jackie can take public comment, or I guess the chair can take public comment.
Okay, I'll take this opportunity to thank you, Colin, and thank Member Boardman for your comments. And if anybody would like to speak from the public, please submit a speaker card or raise your virtual hand, and staff or I will call upon you. Sounds like we do have a remote public comment. Is that correct?
Thank you. My name is Sanjay Mishra. I'm the Public Works Director for City of Pinoy. I just wanted to update about the project that we have completed, that is a APN Way and Marlesta traffic safety intersection project, which initially was a hawk signal, but eventually it was recommended as a full traffic signal interchange. And we completed this project last year, December 2023. We completed the project, and the project is currently being on the final stages of the punch list items, and we're actually getting the contractor to complete the final billing, and we would be requesting reimbursements to CCT and MTC soon for this. So we do not have any other updates on this. If you have any question, I'm happy to provide answers for that.
Any members have questions? Okay, it looks like we're good. Thank you for your comment. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is an informational item. Oh, thank you, Colin, by the way. The next item is an informational item presented by CCTA staff, John Hong and Matt Kelly, to provide an update on the Contra Costa Countywide Transportation Plan 2025 Strategic Policy Paper Summaries.
Good afternoon, Chair Weeks and committee members. John Hong, Director of Planning. This is a big item that we're presenting to you today, even though it's informational, but it's a big step, our first step towards developing our countywide transformation plan. We have a short slide deck to present to you, but all the information in the slide deck was included in the handout that was part of the packet. So hopefully you get a chance to read through those documents. And the purpose of this meeting is to really get some feedback, input from you all regarding the strategies that we're laying out for the ground, for the foundation of the CTP. And also, if you don't get a chance to provide us comments today, we can always receive it after the meeting. With that, Matt's going to share a slide deck. He's going to run this for me, and then we'll do a tag team so you don't have to listen to my voice the whole time. We can make this a short item and a long item. It's really up to you all, and then the feedback you provide to us. So again, this is the second body, the second committee, so to speak, that actually gets to see this information, even though we publish this publicly in the committee packets. But the idea is to go to different committees and eventually up to our board with these policies that we've developed. So next slide. So before I delve into the actual papers themselves, I want to give you a recap of where we've been and where we're going. So there's actually a phase 0 there that should be the action planning effort. Staff has spent a lot of time with the RTPCs, I think even like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, to develop the sub-region action plans. So we developed 5 of them altogether. And those were approved by the respective RTPCs and brought up to our board, I think early last year in 2023. And the intent is to have CCTA receive the action plans and eventually fold it into and roll it up into the CCP once it's finalized next year. So that's phase 0. And then we spent a lot of the last year in developing what we call either white papers, policy papers. We ended up with summary papers. So they're topic-oriented, focus on various modalities and just in general guiding principles for the CTPs. And as you see, phase 1, we were basically working on those last year, and right now we're around where the star is, the red star is. You see, we have a draft set of papers, and we're socializing and getting input from the various committee. I'd like to announce that we do have a new consultant on board. If you're familiar with PlaceWorks, they were helping us with the first phases of the action plans, and now we have Fair and Pierce on board, and they have a whole sub-consultant team with them, and we're going to be entering a contract with them very shortly. So they're going to be helping us ushering the rest of the project going forward, and we also have an environmental impact report EIR team on board also. So with that, as part of phase one, again, it's kind of laid out there. I'm not going to go through everything, but updating the CTPO is one of them, and we're looking at enduring corridor plans. To what type of magnitude those will be is to be determined. We have certain corridors throughout the whole county that we're looking at. Some of the obvious players, like maybe Pleasant Hill Road or Ignacio Valley Road or Treat Boulevard, those type of corridors that we want to do plans for. It could be the 25,000 foot level, or a little bit closer dive. So we're going to be sharing that information as we come along, and then of course the plan is to have some kind of draft CTP close to the end of this year or maybe early next year, and then have the draft EIR in 25 with the intent of closing and wrapping all this up in 25 sometime. Next slide. Okay, so this is where you guys are with a technical coordinating committee. So this is part of the CCTA suite of committees. We also have the Citizens Advisory Committee and also the RTPCs, right? So eventually, the information I share here will go through all these groups. The stakeholders is a group of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and advocacy groups like Bike East Bay and so forth, and other groups that we provide information also to get feedback from different set of eyes. And also we do go out to the public. Last year we called it Summary Event Series, but now it's just outreach series where we go to get just the people on the street and get their feedback at fairs and at certain events throughout the whole county. So that's one area where we get the input, and then it all rolls up to CTP Task Force. And I keep forgetting this, who comprises of it. I think it's staff, right, Matt? Please help me out here. But I think it's comprised of select a member of staff from the agencies. And then the next level up is the
I
planning
think there's
committee.
folks in this room who might be on it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking around. I think I see some folks here that's on there. Thank you, Matt. I gotta make a note to myself. So the next group is the planning committee. That's really where everything gets vetted and gets reviewed and blessed before it goes to the authority board. You see there's a CTP ad hoc committee. So that was formed at the board's request, and it comprises of 4 board members, Supervisor Carlson, Supervisor Carlson, Renata Sauce from Moraga, Chris Kelly from Hercules, and one more. And Lamar Hernandez-Thorpe from Antioch. So those are the 4 folks that are on the ad hoc committee. So now you see how we don't do this in a silo, of course, but it gets all the information. It gets vetted through all these people. Next slide. Okay, let's just dive into the papers themselves. The CTP scope update is that we right now we end up with about 10 papers. It used to be 11 or 12, but kind of distill it down to what we call strategy policy papers. There's 4 papers that oversees the overarching goals, which include equity, safety, sustainability, and innovation, and that guiding principles oversees all the other summary papers. So there's papers on different modalities as we'll go through. Of course, your obvious pedestrian and bicycling, and roadways and transit and so forth. So we'll go through all this, and then so that's part of the first step is to kind of get these strategies papers to state where we can go to the next step, and also look at the economic analysis for all these different type of improvements that we're looking at, and then also developing a blueprint that lays out all the steps that needs to be taken, kind of an improvement of those circle diagrams that we showed you earlier. So the blueprint really lays out a roadmap for all of us to follow. Next slide. Okay, schedule-wise, and this I think I mentioned the schedule already. We're trying to look at sometime towards the middle to the end of 2025, and these are just the different tasks that's associated with it. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to pause there and then see if you have any questions for me or the team here.
Member Armijo?
Thank you. That was a great presentation. I appreciate that. What, are you looking for high-level feedback on some of the guiding principles, or are you looking more for feedback on process moving forward?
We're actually looking for feedback on the next section, so it's on the summary papers, which we'll go through in detail. But feel free to provide feedback on our whole process, please. If you have any feedback, you can provide us.
Well, I think I'll wait for the discussion on the papers. But I did have questions.
I don't have an answer for that. Is there something else I can help with?
I was kind of wondering how we were going to look at microtransit and AI. We at the Mobility Summit we had an introduction to glideways, and is that how are we going to deal with that in our countywide plan?
Okay.
So I just was curious, at a big level, how are we dealing with some of these newer topics that are coming up in transportation?
No, that's a great question. I mean, I'm open to those type of questions also. Basically,
John, I think a lot of that stuff is laid out in the paper summaries.
Yeah.
So we can jump into it if everyone's ready.
Yeah, there's different sections in the summaries that covers innovations and so forth. So, was there another question over here?
Member Doe?
So you showed the schedule for the CTP development. Will we get that schedule as well, or is it just in the slides here?
No, we'll share we'll share the slide deck with you all.
John, we should note that this is a very draft schedule, and since John noted we did just retain a new team, they are actively developing the definitive schedule, which, so we will share this, but just note that this is very draft.
Thank you.
Member Boardman? No, okay. Sounds like we're good to go on to the papers.
Okay,
oh, no, wait. Greenblatt, yes.
Thank you, Chair. For the RTPC approval of action plans, maybe it falls under the stakeholder outreach, but are there earlier check-ins with the RTPCs before the very end?
Yeah, there'll be check-ins. The way that it's listed there, that's just, remember when I mentioned earlier, the action plans have been approved by the RTPCs already. So this is where it folds right up into the CTP, towards the end of the CTP process.
But I think as you develop the CTP, it's good to check in with the RTPCs before you get to the end of that process.
No, yeah, you're correct. Yes, we plan to present at the RTPC East also.
Okay, it's just not, I didn't see how it was reflected in that schedule.
Okay, noted, thank you.
As you can see, they're on the committee slide, and they just won't. We plan on hitting the task force, the ad hoc committee, and the stakeholders on a regular basis, and then on a semi-regular basis, hit the other committees.
Yeah, I just think if you're bringing this to the board, it's good to have those check-in points with the elected officials identified.
That'll be part of that detailed schedule that we're working on.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Member Greenblatt. Thank you, Matt. I say we jump into the next section
Okay,
here.
yeah, let's just go for it.
Okay, thank you.
Dive right into the policy paper. Okay, so, yeah, thanks, Matt. So, as I mentioned earlier, there are guiding principles that transportation equity, safety, climate resiliency, and innovation and technology, Robert. So those principles kind of guide all the other summary papers. Or the summary papers are focused in modes. So aside from the growth management and the data modeling, the other rest are modalities, right? So you have the growth management, land use, public transit, active transportation, roadways, vehicles, and multimodal corridor planning. So today, we're going to go through the first 5 with this group, and then data modeling, we just didn't think, it was more of a technical exercise, so we didn't think that was needed to go over this large of a group, but we can focus on other groups that CCTA is part of. So each one of these papers will have will be governed by the guiding principle. We don't repeat that on each paper, but for each paper there's a summary, goals, vision, goals, policies, and key performance indicators. So that's the format of each paper. There's a vision, and the goals to accomplish that vision, the policies to fulfill those goals, and the indicators on how we measure success. With that, I'm going to go to the first. Okay, there's another slide. Okay, so this is another way to, kind of nice way to present how those guiding principles impact all the different modes and all the different categories. Again, equity, we're looking at equity for all underserved communities, and remove barriers, physical barriers and other barriers, economic barriers. Innovation technology, to a member Amio's point, really looking at connected vehicles, on-demand, all those stuff, all those things that we always preach to the cities and to others, that what CCT supports going to the future, utilizing technology, artificial intelligence, and so forth. And the climate resiliency, making sure that all the efforts, all the projects that we're looking at really addresses reducing GHG and also other natural issues, sea level rise, wildfires, and so forth. And of course, safety. Our board adopted a Vision Zero policy a couple years ago, and a lot of that work, if not all of it, revolves, and it really includes a major element of safety. Next slide. Okay, so this is the first one. Now, I'm going to do a couple of these, and I'm going to hand it off to Matt and Colin so that you can get different different presentations. So the vision, okay, I'm not going to read through all this. I'm hoping that you all had a chance to at least look through these, because these were kind of provided you up front, and again, we're trying to hear and try to get some input and feedback from you all. So the vision, growth management, land use. Again, I'll read a couple of these, but then going forward, I won't. Facilitate efficient, coordinated land use and development patterns. The crux of this is, as you know, the urban line limit. Is that right? Or urban limit line? Urban line limit. Is that right? Or the other one?
Limit line.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the second time I've crossed that out. Somebody else corrected me too in the last meeting. So that's a big element of the growth management plan program that CCTA oversees. And again, you know what the purpose of that is to really limit growth. And the county that I'm not speaking on behalf of the county, but that the county oversees that ballot measure, and I think that's going to come up pretty soon for renewal. So whatever ballot measure, whatever we do here at CCTA would align with the ULL compliance. The GMPs, that's something that we look at doing here. We want to continue implementing the expenditure plan and the CTP and so forth. And then, of course, using the GMP as a tool to manage development and in transportation and other types of development. So that's the vision, goals, and then next slide, Matt. Okay, so this is the growth management. This is the policies. Okay, so these are the policies, right? So policy number one is to focus on growth management, maintaining the existing ULL, consider potential changes to ULL and so forth, and making sure that the GMP checklist is implemented and completed accordingly. Speaking on GMP, we're coming up with another cycle of the GMP checklist, and that's really to make sure that the cities comply with the GMP policy as part of the CTP, the current CTP, and the Measure J in general. Next slide. So we have the housing and land use policy, which helps look at RHNA numbers, the regional housing needs assessments, and also look at incentives for jurisdictions and cities to build housing in certain areas of, to meet the RHNA numbers, and also address PDAs and TPAs, and also encouraging zoning policies, and also look at policies that encourages vehicle and bicycling standards to allow more shared parking and prohibit minimum parking requirements. Next slide. So this is the key performance indicators that we would measure by, looking at average density of homes, units, number of below market BMR rates, BMR units, looking at the acreage of public right-of-way and so forth and so forth. So you see the layout of each summary paper will be the goals, policy, and KPIs. So vision, goals, policy, and KPIs. So that covers the first topical paper. So I just want to open it up to see if you had a chance to kind of look at these and have any comments for this particular topic.
Does anybody have any comments they'd like to raise this time? Member Boardman?
Thanks. So it looks like you really did a deep dive into MTC's transit-oriented communities policies, and so is the goal or really the intention to simply comply or be like lockstep with what they're producing in terms of requirements?
You mentioned the transit-oriented development, TOD?
No, transit-oriented communities.
Oh, communities,
policy from
TOC, yes,
MTC,
yeah. Yeah, well, you may or may not know that TOC policy from MTC is going to dictate, is going to guide where the money's going to, like the next cycle of OBAC 4. They've indicated to us, CCTA, and all the agencies that they're going to be using that as one of the guiding principles for distributing OBAC funds. So we're not necessarily in a way, CCTA, for the benefit of the cities, will have to comply, because that's the policy, that's the string that goes along with the funding. But at the same time, we can look beyond that because our interest is Contra Costa County and our member agencies. So we have to develop something that would be approved by the cities and benefit the cities more than MTC. But at the same time, that policy does come into play.
Sure, just to add on though, so you're speaking to the transit priority areas, which are a little more extensive than just what the TOC policy really touches. Are you looking to implement sort of the same strategies that the TOC policy does, but then take it a step further so that it touches the whole transit priority area?
It may be right now. It's just an idea, a thought that we have. We may need to delve into it a little bit further.
Yeah, John, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yes, Mayor, I think it's a lot of these policies are really in alignment with MTC policies that it may have come out of Plan Bay Area 2050, and really just kind of because this is the growth management program section, it's really just trying to further the kind of existing goals of the growth management program to really focus development at infill sites and away from green fields. So, as part of this exercise, we were really looking for some ways to further advance the GMP and we don't think there's anything in there that is going to be punitive to the cities. It's more just kind of using the GMP to encourage the good types of planning that MTC wants us to be doing and that we want to be doing. So yeah, it was really just to kind of build upon those GMP efforts, and which happen to be, kind of pretty consistent with the TOC policy.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd like to ask one. Just, I always have to ask a bike question because it's Bike to Work Day, so I want to just ask, one for a clarification, and maybe I'm on to something bigger. I don't know, probably just a clarification here. But there's a bullet here that talks about, let me see the section. Second. See if they'll let me scroll. Under policies, there's an adopt vehicle micromobility / bicycle parking standards bracket off-street, unbracket that allow unbundled and shared parking and prohibit minimum parking requirements. So can you explain what that means? Are you talking about car parking requirements here in this bike thing? I don't see it. I don't quite understand this bullet. Can you clarify where you're talking about micromobility and bicycles and where you're talking about other vehicles like cars? I can't tell here whether you're saying you're going to prohibit minimum car parking requirements. Is that what that bullet means?
No, I don't think it
Yes.
means. Go ahead, Matt.
John, so the parking minimums, and Colin, weigh in if I'm wrong here. Parking minimums are vehicle based.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear. So, because
we wouldn't.
I want to make sure we have, we should have minimum bike requirements and we'd be raising those requirements as much as possible. So I want to make sure that that's what you intend.
But the prohibiting would be the vehicle based.
Okay.
But it's about coming up with standards for both vehicle and bicycle parking. And I think one of the main tenets of that would be to prohibit minimum vehicle parking requirements.
Okay, and will that be sussed out in another place where you're talking about the details of, let's say bike cages or bike rooms and larger developments and kind of the details of what you guys want to see in those projects? Is that what you're talking about there with the shared parking comment in this bullet?
Yeah, but I think we get into more on that in the active transportation section.
Okay. I just wanted to get some clarity on that because I know that this is something that we're dealing with on a regular basis with our bigger developments. Often the bike parking is put in this very strange location, or it is not secure. And I think that, since we want, one of the tenets of this is to use current and emerging technology, I think we should try to include that in bike parking. So, I've been talking about that for a while now. So as any way that we can include guidance from you guys in these kinds of standards, it would be helpful for us when we're saying, hey, we want you to have this card key access to this bike cage, or we want it to be easier to access, or have it be in a place that not everybody in the building can get into. Only people that have a card key access for the bike room can get in the bike room. You can't just walk in there if you happen to have a car in the garage. All these details are new to some of the developers who've never even thought about this. They just think that's where you dump the bike that you use once a year or something like that. So I'd like to see more emerging technologies in those discussions, and maybe we'll talk about that in the other paper.
Yes, thanks for the comment. Actually, we're going to clarify that point right there to make sure that we include vehicle parking requirements to make sure it's clear. Thanks for the point. And then again, this policy is really applicable to like developments, right? So it has to be minimum vehicle parking. Did you want to say something else?
Yeah, we appreciate where the comments are coming from. I think you made similar ones at a CBPAC meeting, and it's just one of those packet publication things where, in terms of timing, this is the version, but there's an internal version that has track changes that begins to address what you're getting at. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from committee members? Member Sarmiento.
Hi, thank you. I have just a question on, I think on number 5, if you could provide some clarification on what that, the step, what that entails.
You want me to go?
Yeah, go for it, Matt.
So that basically, Robert, that's question number 1 on your checklist is what steps has the jurisdiction taken to implement the action plan. So each action plan has a list of actions, and so basically it's just documenting what actions have been taken for each action plan. So it's something you're already reporting on in the checklists.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the clarification, Matt.
Sure.
Should we need to kind of reword it another way to make it more clear for others?
I mean, that's the wording in the checklist, but yeah, we could make it clear.
Okay.
Any other questions? Can I just throw one last one in here? I just want to bring this up one time. Last night there was at the board, you guys approved the GMP and also the TFCA 40% funds. And I felt like in the conversation there wasn't a connection being made between the TDM requirements and the GMP and the challenges that the new TFCA 40% program may pose if there are not countywide programs that are available that are either equivalent to the existing TDM plans that the cities have, once we have to all go out to bid on these projects. So maybe, keeping these updated as we go through the next year and a half, looking at the new TDM projects that are even available to a lot of our cities. Because if the emphasis really does change to, let's say all the money that's in SWAT right now, a good chunk of it ends up going to another place. We don't know how that's going to happen, but we'll see. And if that happens, that'll impact that portion of the GMP that's related to providing TDM programs in our community if there aren't any available. So I'm just a little worried about that, and that dot connection of the dots wasn't really made in the discussion, but that wasn't the main topic. But I'm concerned about that in the GMP in the long term, and I'm sure Matt has something to say, or it looks like he's almost raising his hand. Matt.
I'm trying to angle. Yeah, thanks, Chair Weeks. So the requirement in the GMP and the checklist for TDM is that you adopted a citywide TDM ordinance. So give me, provide, if you could, how do you think we could orient the changes, like you said, that were made last night, with that requirement? Do you think there still is an issue there?
Yeah, the only thing I was concerned about is, I mean, our city has a TDM resolution that they passed, and we had a TDM advisory committee, and that resolution includes specific wording for certain projects. And if those projects aren't available, then what is that? Is that resolution useful? Like, if it says that our central tenet is to provide carpool incentives, and there's no carpool incentive program available in Contra Costa County, for example, if that was the case. So I'm just worried are we all going to have to pass new resolutions to be in compliance with the GMP if what our resolutions say are no longer applicable? That's an example. I mean, I'm not terrified of that situation. I mean, we can go to council, we can pass new resolutions, but if we need to be doing those things to make them consistent with what's actually available, then we probably need to know that. So those are the kind of things I was thinking about.
That's a great point. We can look into that. It's just like if a state law changes that affects something in the GMP, we have to address it somehow.
Thanks, Matt. Member Greenblatt, you have a comment?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for the KPIs to identify who'd be responsible for measuring the indicators.
Yeah, good question. Good point. We can add that to the KPIs. Can I go back to that last question that you brought up?
No. Yeah, of course you can. Yes, of course. Go ahead.
I just want to make sure, I think Matt understands it, but I want to make sure I understand it. So you were concerned that the changes we made to the TFCA policy would impact how the cities meet the GMP?
Yeah, for example, if the new TFCA plans go through, it'll make it so that people can apply for like a local project or non-regional projects, and it may take money away from one area and move it into another area, and then that program isn't available. I know this is all weird and hypothetical, but I think you follow me.
I know, exactly.
So it's just, it's been agreed on and voted on, so it's happening. So if it is happening, I want to make sure that we don't get to putting in the GMP and suddenly we don't have a program that was a central tenet of it. Like, one example is our TDM advisory committee right now is under consideration for dissolution because of the lack of return to work that's taking place in our primary employment centers. And one of the central tenets of our resolution was to have a TDM advisory committee, and that TDM advisory committee needs to meet on a regular basis. So we're going to have to go back if that committee does get dissolved and redo that whole resolution. So that's a piece. It hasn't been decided for sure, but that's something that I've been looking at and just wondering how that will impact the GMP. So since we have the opportunity to turn it in early, I heard you talking about that. Maybe I could try to put it together and turn it in early before the change gets made. But I'd rather just have it be up to date if we need to be doing those things.
Well, that's a point well taken. I was at that meeting too, and I didn't make the connection. It just happens to be that those two items was presented to the board last night, but yeah, there's a connection there. Thank you.
Any other comments? Great, so I guess that moves us to the next paper.
All right, public transit. It's not my cup of tea, but I'm going to try to walk you through this. So really facilitate the efficient movement of people through policies, plans, and projects and programs. And we have a set of goals there. Again, these are nothing earth-shattering or new, but it's really, again, to minimize environmental impacts, achieving a 60% increase in transit mode. That's a very hefty goal there. Develop dynamic on-demand transit services and mobility options for all residents. I think with CCTA, we're actually actively looking at different options and so forth at delivering that, and also developing convenient transit service that compete with SOV, single occupancy vehicles. Really trying to get folks out of the vehicles and into transit. And then again, these are goals that even though it's a CCTA document, but it's really for our partner transit agency to help us meet those goals too. Next slide. So the policies include transit priorities, looking at first and last mile connectivity, looking at automated transit network. Have you guys ever heard of that before? So we have to, that's a new terminology that we're using now, as opposed to dynamic personal transit, DPMT, and the glideways, are all, you know, those type of names. So we're using autonomous transit networks. So if you've seen a glideway or a picture of a glideway, that's what ATN are. Another policy is prioritizing and implementing MOD. CCTA, as you know, is working on a mobility on demand app, and we want to continue further development and deployment of that app. Constructing shared mobility hubs. CCTA is also working with various cities on implementing mobility hubs, and also making transit accessible. Either, you know, we're talking about BART, aside from the buses, but BART and ferries also, and making sure that ADA compliance mechanisms are in place to allow folks with limited accessibilities and wheelchair usage to be able to access all these transit reasonably. And also look at implementing the CCTA ATSP. Next slide. The key performance indicators, we've broken it up into two categories: customer experience and performance monitoring, mainly for the transit providers. So the customer experience is really look at wait time, travel time, making sure that transit is available for all, including APCs and non-APCs, and the percentage of community that's accessible for transit service for residents from underserved communities. And also, there's people that's already riding, but we want to look at trying to get new riders into transit, including paratransit. And the performance monitoring is for the transit operator, more like the miles of transit priority lanes constructed, the number of shared mobility hubs, percentage of trips made using transit, and also miles traveled using transit and so forth. So those are the KPIs that we came up with under the public transit category, and we'll certainly open this up for discussion.
Does anybody have any questions on the transit? Member Dixit.
So I've got a couple of questions. So the slide kind of mentioned that there's a increase of transit mode share by 60%, whereas this one says 25%. So could you clarify what you mean, why those numbers are different, or?
It's probably 25%. Yeah, thanks for.
What's the question?
There's a difference between the numbers we used on the paper versus the slide deck.
Yeah, they must have, that is an old version of the paper. So based on our meeting with the ad hoc committee, we decided not to identify a specific mode share number and instead focus on increasing actual ridership. So this is probably misworded, but basically it would be a 60% increase in ridership for each service, for each provider.
Yeah, basically one of the meetings we received input from, I think it was electeds and stakeholders, that they wanted to see the number presented in a bit of a different light, instead of the percent of all trips that would be transit trips, instead presenting it as a way of an increase in the transit mode share itself. Matt, am I explaining that in a way that makes sense?
They weren't focused on getting the mode share to a certain number, just on
The increase.
general increases in ridership. Yeah.
Another general clarifying question is, for the key performance indicators, is there like a baseline we are measuring against, or like a year we are setting it at?
There will be now, yes. No, yes, we, you know, all
Is it
kidding aside.
2025 when it's adopted and that's when we start tracking it, or?
Yeah, with all KPIs, yeah, there is a baseline, and that's a good point. We have to kind of have more discussion.
So
and
we use our
discover
model as the base, for everything we do in the CTP, and its base year is 2020 or 2019.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of these are new, so we're going to have to establish a baseline number. Yeah.
So I just want to make a note that we're going to be updating that goal number 3 here on the handout for future distribution. Matt, can you note that? So that matches the 60% in the slide.
Okay, thank you. We do have some other comments. So Member Armijo?
Just a quick clarification on the transit performance metric when you're measuring mode shifts from private to public. Is that going to include the other, the newer modes like the micro transit or other modes that are emerging now? And if glideways or something comes around, or is that going to be measured in there?
In this context, yes, it would include the newer modes.
Okay, great. Thank
Yeah, because ultimately those modes would most likely be operated by one of our public transit operators.
And we can add some language to address that too. Thanks.
Member Wertz?
Hi, yes, thanks. So for the percent of community accessible from transit service for residents from underserved communities, I just was wondering if we could get some clarification as to what is the threshold for accessibility in this context? Just because that wording is just a little vague.
I think the thought behind that was having some sort of distance. So percent of community, with a transit stop within a certain distance of their home.
Any other comments? Member McLean.
I didn't see anything explicit about the guiding principle of safety in the public transit topic, and I think there's some opportunity to talk about access to transit, safe access to transit, both from a personal security standpoint and from an actual traffic safety standpoint.
That's a great comment. Thank you. Yeah, we probably overlooked it. Thank you.
One more thing to kind of consider.
Member Dixit.
Oh, sorry.
Go.
So, since one of the goals is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, so if there's, I think it makes sense to include KPI for greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah. Like clean vehicles and.
Yeah, like CO2 captured or something which reduced due to transit, something like that.
Okay.
Any other comments? Member Canardi.
So you propose a automated transit network. So I just want to be assured this isn't another word salad we're being served over the previous ones. What exactly are you talking about when you mention an automated transit network?
So Jim, we are actively working with Glideways for a project in East County. And that is the thought behind that. Let's see where we're at, 7, to get an initial operating segment out in East County. Yeah, that's what that is referring to. it's not trying to be word salad, but it's also not trying to call out glideways specifically. We're trying to keep it somewhat agnostic, but that is the thought behind it.
So the origin of that word automated transit network is actually, we take it from the federal description. They have that's how they describe those type of vehicles. And that's why we started using the ATN description rather than calling it by name, glideways or DPMT, which is the previous name.
I mean, there's opportunities in automation that are being neglected with this, like hyper-focused on a demo project. So there's automated buses or semi-autonomous buses. There's also automation of the BART system. So would those be included since this is a policy document?
I would say that they're included. Again, under the definition of what we're reading right now, ATN, that any type of ATN would be included, regardless if it's glideways.
But I don't think bus systems or I don't know if well, Jim mentioned BART and then automatic buses. I'm assuming buses that look like a non-automated bus. And I don't know whether those would be considered an ATN because they're already considered something else. So maybe we do need to see if there's another policy we could add that gets at automation of the current transit network or something like that.
If that's what you're asking, then we can certainly add that. If to differentiate the ATN or there's another terminology or whatever it is that we would like to consider.
I see the problem is that there is a general like technology or technologies that are being developed in the field of automated transit or autonomous transit vehicles. So it's perfectly reasonable within like a countywide plan or something to look at those technologies and how they can provide benefits to the public. But it seems like you've got a very specific project that you want to do, and why is it being elevated as a countywide policy unless this policy can be applied more broadly to other communities besides where it's currently being targeted?
I mean, that is the ultimate goal, I think, from the initial operating segment out in East County, is to see, could this work elsewhere in Contra Costa? And could it even work elsewhere in East County?
I understand. I understand what you're getting at. Yeah. It's to answer that, to respond to that point is that the ATN that CCTA is looking at is not only for East County, but eventually, like Matt said, countywide. Right? That's just one of the goals there. But again, to your point, if we need to add like autonomous bus or any other nomenclature, any other description to address other than ATN, other than what falls under the ATN umbrella, then we can certainly add that too.
I mean, Jim, it could be something like explore options for automated, bus or other transit vehicles.
Member Conradi, can I add to this just a little bit? Just maybe this will get at what you're trying to say. The automated transit network you guys are talking about requires its own private right-of-way. And there's a whole world of autonomy, which you guys know about, that shares the right-of-way with everybody else. So to me, that's the distinct difference between this and other types of vehicle autonomy and shared use autonomous vehicles. So maybe clarifying that we're also interested in those options too, would be a good thing to do. And as far as, I really appreciate the BART comment. I'm always wondering what the drivers are doing in there. So I think we need to keep asking that question too, and keep that open. I know BART's open to pretty much anything to stay in business at this point. So I think you guys really would love to have BART mentioned in some way here. And, and just to, I'm sorry, I get to comment on all this because I took over the chair, so I'm enjoying this. So, and what Brinjal was saying earlier about our future express bus network is going to be hydrogen. And, so adding to the KPI something about the air quality impacts of the vehicles chosen and tracking that. And I really think that's super important. I don't want to let that get by, so. Did I help a little bit with your question? Remember? Or I did not.
Your comment was distinctly different, but equally valid, though.
Okay, great. So I didn't help at all, but I helped in some other way. Oh, well, okay. Any other comments or attempts at helping? Member Armijo.
I don't know if this helps with what you're talking about, but it's something I've been thinking about with when we deploy new vehicles. I don't know if this would be a comment towards the goals or the visions, but as we deploy new technologies, maybe it should be a goal or part of our vision that these new technologies aren't competing with our existing services. That when we're increasing the overall ridership, that the new technologies that are being deployed are taking, are cutting into a new market share, if you will, rather than taking away from our existing services. I don't know if that helps or kind of a corollary. It's something certainly that I was thinking about.
I didn't see who raised their hand first, but Member Greenblatt's closer, so I guess you get to go first.
Proximity, I like it. So I do have a couple of comments. On the goals for this, on the handout, there's 5, and here there's 4, and the one that's different is number 5 here is develop equitable and accessible transit service, yada, yada, yada. And I'm just wondering, where did that go? Is there a reason why it's not listed anymore?
Yeah, so you caught us in an iterative process where we keep on editing as we go along, and this is probably one of the things we probably receive a comment from the last group that we present to, and they made a comment. We probably just didn't transfer and updated the information appropriately. So,
so which one? Like, did somebody want to get rid of the develop equitable transit service?
I have to go back and check the notes, our notes, and check with our team here.
I'm going to put a shout out for having develop equitable and accessible transit service as a goal.
Okay, that's good. Well, it's on the hard copy right now. Yeah, I think the hard. I'm gonna say this. I think the hard copy supersedes the slide deck.
Okay, great.
But I'm gonna confirm this one. Thanks for bringing up the.
Looks like Matt's shaking his head the other way. Okay, might check in.
Well, offline, you guys can work that one out, but I'm seeing some nods around and snapping around the table in support of that. Then my next one had to do with the first and last mile connectivity, and the first and last mile examples in the bullet points are all vehicle-based, and I'd like to see some non-auto options included for first and last mile connectivity.
What page? Which one are you on?
Under policies.
Okay.
There's first and last mile connectivity. And then there's expanding dial ride and shared autonomous vehicles and landside access improvements, gap closures. And I think that, probably one of these existing bullets could be modified to include non-auto options for first and last mile.
Okay, thank you.
And then this is one more sort of, comment. I was thinking about this and what would motivate or, people to ride. And I think the things that we hear a lot about are safety, so I was really happy to hear that mentioned. Personal security, cleanliness, hours of operation, the number of transfers, even the price. And I'd like to see some KPIs related to that. I'm not in a position right now to come up with them, but I feel confident that you and the consultant team can work on, maybe it's security, like the number of incidents reported is measured, and I don't know what you would do for cleanliness and hours of operation, but I think those are all really important factors that people take into consideration when they're making that choice, whether to ride transit.
Absolutely appreciate the input. One of the things that is the ongoing challenge as we're developing, in particular the KPIs, is the challenge of not just the baseline, but the the metric in the first place. And to the extent that you have recommendations on that stuff too, that would be super helpful. All I can think of off the top of my head is like the frequency of fast food bags on BART or something. But obviously we'll think of something better.
Yeah, or, I defer to the transit people
Sure.
I'm adjacent to here, but they probably, their cleaning crews probably have some metric that they're using. How long does it take to clean a bus or something like that? Or
Member Wertz?
And these have to be metrics that are actually reportable and monitorable. So we do, Is it something that's already being reported?
Oh, yeah, so,
Yeah, go ahead, Member Wertz, sorry.
no, you're good. Back to I believe it was the autonomous vehicle network that we were talking about. Back to that slide. Yeah, there it is, autonomous transit network. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like part of the discussion is talking about having autonomous vehicles not just be part of this isolated project in East County, but perhaps going to other existing forms of service, including like our fixed routes. And that's making me wonder, that makes me think of the drivers, right? Like, are we really considering them here? Like, is there much thought being given to how they might be retrained for new roles that would be created in this process? So that's just something I want to put out there.
If I understand your point correctly, so the ATN in this context is, it's not bus, it's not the regular buses, right? It's specifically these glideways, for lack of a better description, right? So it's separate than the bus, the autonomous bus. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So there's no driver. I mean, if ATNs are deployed, there's no driver to begin with.
Yeah, but I think, go ahead.
Yeah.
Member Greenblatt,
So
sorry.
I think what Jim was saying was that there's this, if you think of the term automated transit network, that doesn't necessarily mean just like a vehicle that holds passengers, that it could be a bus component or a transit component that's automated, or it could be, some part of the BART system that's automated. Is that?
Yeah, network sort of makes me think of a bunch of different components together, perhaps
Gotcha.
different agencies, different modes, and so that's where this question's coming from.
Okay, I understand now, thank you. So it looks like we have to go back and then kind of get a true definition of what ATN is and kind of go on from there, and then maybe clarify some of the policies that we're, in the description that we're identifying. Thank you. Chair Weeks, I'm just doing a time check. I don't know if you have enough. We
I
just
got all
finished
day.
2 out of 3, 2 out of 5.
No, good point. I mean, I think that we're almost wrapping up comments here on the transit. So I think we can move forward to the next paper at this time.
Okay, great. So, and I really, all the comments and feedback is great. Don't be shy about sharing, with us your thoughts, because that's why we're here, is to, we're not saying that we have this all set and everything and then done. This is what we need from you all. So thank you. So next item is active transportation. So I'm going to hand it off to our active transportation person to kind of walk you through this.
So the vision statement for active transportation as drafted so far, happy to have input. Provide a connected, attractive, and safe network of on and off-street facilities that prioritizes mobility for all ages and abilities and accommodates trips of all purposes for everyone. The goals, implementing complete streets as applicable, prioritizing a contiguous bike network, prioritizing the low-stress network. If there were to be a future investment of the scale of a potential sales tax measure kind of thing, there could be a possibility of, should the expenditure plan in the future be kind of front-loaded so that the low-stress bike network gets built out contiguously in the first 5 to 10 years, and then maybe it tapers off in terms of investment in the outer years as, one potential strategy. Another goal listed here is to consider the options that are recommended by the Countywide Pedestrian Needs Assessment, and it lists the 5 or so areas that were analyzed in detail as part of that pedestrian needs assessment. Achieving countywide Vision Zero, eliminating fatalities and severe injuries, and to speak to this last one, providing education and safety awareness training, however, in a way that reaches out to the average member of the public that can never see themselves being a part of the wearing certain,
spandex.
Thank you. But maybe they could picture themselves in other types of electric bikes and, modes that we may or may not have seen at scale yet in terms of, the more wind resistant, wind efficient, almost car enclosure-like looking low riding recumbents and other bikes and trikes that we will see in the future. The idea is to try to put it together in a way that people can relate to and see themselves. Matt's driving, right? Okay. Construct a contiguous countywide walkway network and low-stress bikeway network by 2030. That's what I mentioned. Connecting to the shared mobility hubs and neighborhoods and key land uses. Happy to have input on, what those specific land uses should be in terms of priorities. Developing a cohesive network of wayfinding signs and place identifying markers. Taking the successful CCTA-funded 511 Contra Costa e-bikes rebate program and expanding it so that even more people can benefit, and leveraging TDM programs to increase direct incentives to the people that travel throughout Contra Costa, including an ability to kind of affect behavior change in a more, as close to real time as possible, and to actually, essentially, in order to get, VMT reductions, paying people to, use other modes, like active transportation, like transit. Next slide. In terms of KPIs, there's 3 different categories here: customer experience, and the other being performance monitoring, but then further broken out by infrastructure and equipment versus operations. And so in terms of the customer experience, obviously, in terms of the Vision Zero, that's front of mind in terms of number of fatalities and severe injuries, but getting hopefully past that at some point, the bar of 0 deaths, and getting into the quality of life and the greenways and the fresh air and the quality of service that is provided in the context that would encourage more people to use active transportation modes. Those types of things have been tried to integrate into the customer experience KPIs here, and also adding a number of electric chargers. I think Chair Weeks, we can add or discuss adding something related to electric locker type things, and
Yes,
just
please.
trying to figure out how to balance, because ultimately it's you all that have to collect the data. So we're trying to find a happy balance. So don't want to have too many KPIs. Want to have something that's easily or at least manageably collected. Getting on to into the next one, number of bikes, butts on bikes, basically, right? Is the next bit of performance monitoring KPIs, but also the number of miles of trails. And I appreciated the comment earlier about the term accessible and how that's used, so we'll try to take a look into that. And then in terms of operations, % of all trips that primarily use active transportation, but open to other ideas for KPIs. I'll leave it there for comments.
Any comments from the committee? I think Member Boardman's first. Go.
Thanks. So this is actually more of a general comment, but the KPIs obviously are very much so metric based and they're quantitative in nature. What are your thoughts on something that's more outcome driven, qualitative, that we could be reporting on?
Yeah, we can consider that like outcome-based performance, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
If you have anything, just let us know.
Member Greenblatt?
So starting on the goals, I think it would be good as you present this to the public, in the order of the goals, I'd recommend shifting the safety one, which is now number 5, up to be your number 1. I think it just looks better for the agency. And then taking that concept a little further, when you get to the policies, there's no policy topic that deals with safety. And I bet you we have policies that for active transportation that we want to include there. So I think that needs to be revisited. And then on the performance measures, the performance monitoring operations, again, like on the handout or in the agenda packet, there was a 4th one, but there's only 3. And the 4th one, I didn't understand, so I'm not sure why it was edited, but my question on that one was I'll read it. So the number of miles of off-street facilities, parentheses, bikeways versus charging stations, parentheses, for micro-mobility for residents from underserved communities. So one, it's not shown, and two, I need an explanation. I don't understand that.
Matt, you're the expert on this. You want to take it?
Wait a second. Do you think I wrote that one?
Yeah, no. I will be happy to take that.
Thank you.
We can break it up so that it is more, it makes more sense. I mean, the short answer in terms of why it's not in there is because it was brevity for slides, honestly. Happy to make changes to that.
But what does it mean?
So
I don't understand it.
Sure. So in terms of it's number of miles for micromobility. So, there's a school of thought that, pedestrians should have their own space, cyclists should have their own space, and that micromobility may or may not share space with cyclists, or you would have, electric bikes and that kind of class or speed separated from pedal-powered bicyclists of that speed.
So one of the indicators then would be miles of off-street facilities, and then another indicator would be the number of charging stations?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I have to go to the other side of the room really quick. Sorry, guys. Member Sarmiento.
Just to add to Leah's comment, I just think for this like KPI for this one, I think you just have too many things going on, because you have bikeways versus charging stations, and you have micromobility, and the way you described it, you're talking about different facilities for different types of modes, like for pedestrians and for regular bicycles and for e-bikes and other those kind of similar modes. So I just think this one, recommendation just to split it up, or kind of split it up, or make it more simplify this KPI. All right, thank you.
Member Boardman, now it's your turn.
Okay. So I echo that statement. And also, this does really prioritize build out of a network, which I appreciate. But it feels like it doesn't necessarily prioritize some of the most impacted locations where we talk about vulnerable road users, which is the crossings. And so from, looking at lane miles, I mean, it's nothing, right? Because it's just an intersection. But that's actually some of the most critical infrastructure that we have. So consider that as, however you incorporate that in the KPIs, because what we don't want is number of annual fatalities or severe injuries to even be considered, because we're taking the safe system approach.
Right.
Member Conradi.
So under the goals, if you could go back, there's number 2 is to prioritize contiguous class 1 or class 4 physically protected cycling facilities. It might be good to add a third category, which are bike lanes that are level with the sidewalk, so they have protection of the curb. It's a very popular approach in Canadian cities.
Good, thank you.
Do those fit into the numbering, the class system?
Is that part of the class?
Yeah, the bike lanes that are at grade width sidewalks are considered class 4 per Caltrans.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Member McLean, sorry.
Kind of building off of what Member Greenblatt said about the goals, moving Vision Zero to the top, I really like then we have kind of a lot of caveats on these goals. I would think that we could get rid of the as applicable and just say complete streets on all roadway projects. The where feasible becomes a very easy loophole to get out of doing things. So maybe 2 and 3 kind of become combined about building out low stress bikeway network, and not worry about if it's feasible at the goal level, that should be. And then considering the options recommended by the countywide pedestrian needs assessment, again, I don't know that it needs to be considered, but should actually be done.
Well, we appreciate those comments, and we put those words in because of other comments. So.
And those other comments came from elected officials.
Yeah, I was going to be a lot more blunt about it. Like,
we did have more proactive adjectives or adverbs there, but we were told to dial them back.
We hear you.
Any other comments? Member Boardman?
Sorry, can I just, I would encourage CCTA staff then, and really any staff here, to help inform elected officials about what the definition of a complete street is, because a complete street isn't that literally everyone can use it for every single thing. Like, you're not walking on the freeway, right? So I think that's something that can be clearly defined and would help bring that point forward without having to provide those loopholes.
Yeah, just to build off of that, what you were saying, I would think that it would be at least somewhat feasible everywhere that's not like a controlled access road, like a freeway, right?
Are we looking for an answer there?
Sorry, that was, I mean, that was sort of a question, but also sort of like, we should be trying to do this just for the sake of preventing fatalities, right?
Sounds like a yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
And just
Member McLean, go
one
ahead.
more thing, like even the freeway projects, we're usually building local roadway interchanges. Even the fourth bore of the Caldecott Tunnel, there was elements of that included non-freeway pieces that at least it should be looked at from the complete streets lens. So that's where I think it really is applicable on almost all projects, or all projects, not almost, all projects.
Okay, and I'm just going to throw one last one in here. It's on our transition out. There's a gray area between, I think, the transit one and the bike one. I served on the Caltrain Bicycle Advisory Committee for 10 years, and our focus was looking at onboard facilities and wayside facilities. And this is very important to Caltrain and very important to Caltrain riders. And it's something that I think the language for that, Bart, has also been talking about. And maybe there's a number we can look at there that looking at percent of ridership bicycle ridership using wayside facilities, percent of ridership bringing bikes on board. I know you have a lot of KPIs here already, but it would be nice to see that in there for our buddies over at Caltrain. They aren't in the room today, but I'm sure Bart can take advantage of that language too.
Just had lunch today with the consultant that's going to be doing that for VTA. So, yeah, we can appreciate the input.
Okay, thank you. So shall we move to the next paper? We're almost there.
This is Matt.
Okay, we've got 2 more. I'm going to try and get through these pretty quick because of the late hour. So roadways and vehicles. This is what our CTP and our action plans historically focused on. Now it's just part of the, part of the menu, part of the, just another mode, we'll call it. So the vision is that the roadway network, because it does support the needs, or it is, an option that a lot of our residents choose to use for, whatever reason. The network must operate at a level of performance that supports the needs of all users, providing that safe and equitable access to local and regional destinations in and outside of Contra Costa. Just to reinforce that the roadway network does provide critical transportation infrastructure, connecting people, but, importantly, moving those goods and services around the county. So the goals that we've identified that were highlighted in the policy papers were to enhance mobility while, managing congestion to the extent possible and providing, roadway safety for all users, whether it's a vulnerable user or someone, in a cyber truck. Let's see, manage speeds to enable safer travel for people. And they're really focusing on those vulnerable road users, including seniors and children. So I think we all know that the lower the speed, the less likely for severe injuries and fatalities. So we know that's the key, and that comes from the vehicles. And develop a sustainable plan for ongoing operations and maintenance of our roadways. That's something all the local agencies are concerned with. So developing a kind of a future-proof plan for funding O&M. Okay, some of the policies, modernize our roadways, make them smarter. So kind of adopting that Innovate 680 vision on other corridors, preparing our roadway infrastructure for the future. So incorporating those smart technologies so the vehicles can communicate with each other, on a countywide network. And then encourage use of roundabouts and many iterations and types of roundabouts, traffic circles and things as kind of a standard type of multi-directional intersection, and hopefully replacing the need for new signalized intersection at where applicable. Everybody's favorite language. And then digital infrastructure. So, digging into the technology portion and really building out a digital infrastructure where we're using AI. That was brought up earlier. And, hopefully, producing a high functioning roadway system, connecting communities and increasing quality of life. And then establish countywide connected traffic systems, signal systems, which we've started now. John and his effort has started that. And then bringing in all these technologies and acronyms that we may not even understand today: machine learning, AI, digital twin, all that good stuff. Okay, then centralized roadway operations. So really investing in a countywide centralized data center where we have the ability to manage our own roadways. And then let's see, curb management. I'll jump down there. So really focusing on the curb and what's going on there. There's a lot of activities that go on there today and could potentially go on there in the future. So how do we plan for that? How do we, how do we change our land uses, our streetscapes to support, good curb management? And then down to Vision Zero, implementing Vision Zero and the Caltrans strategic highway safety plan. So, really bringing the safety down to our local streets. And then KPIs, once again, we've divided it up into customer experience and operations. And so really focusing on what the users are experiencing out there. Are they getting hurt? Are they moving? And what does air quality look like, not just countywide, but within certain corridors? And then on the operations side, what are we doing with VMT, and not just countywide, but in more localized areas? And then what is the effectiveness of dynamic parking pricing, and really doing that curb management where you're trying to increase that utilization rate, increase the turnover rate on street meters, things like that. That's it for roadways. Open it up for any question or comments.
Do we have any comments? Member Greenblatt?
All right, just two, I think, here. When looking at the policies, there's the digital infrastructure. And then that second bullet talks about establish countywide connected traffic signal systems, maximizing, and then it goes into a bunch of things that I'm unfamiliar with: sensor fusion, digital twin, SG. And I think if this is, we shouldn't assume that people know what these things are. And technology changes so quickly. I don't know if these are necessarily the things that we want to be maximizing. So I don't know if you can modify this so that it's less text specific, or give us an explanation of what these things are.
John can probably explain some of these, but I tend to agree with you, Leah. We don't want to just talk about the trends of today, maybe keep it more future flexible. But John, is there any of these that we need to know about?
Yeah, Matt, I think we failed to inform you all of this, but these are the summary papers. And I get your point about like streamlining the language, but there's actually papers like 20 to 30, there's actually papers that where these come from. So we can include that, all the technical stuff in those papers, and can leave them out on these summary papers.
And you can reference it. You can say, see page whatever, the summary paper for further explanation or something like that.
Okay.
And then my other comment had to do with the policy for Vision Zero implementation. It seems like we're kind of light on the bullet points for implementing safety. And I think that there's more detail that could be provided that we pull from the countywide Vision Zero document. And then there's also the local roadway safety plans that we'd want to implement. I just think, we're always hearing about safety, so beef up safety.
Any other comments? I could feel it. Go ahead. Member Goya.
This is a general comment. This category is obviously very important because it's an important mode, but I remember going back to the development of the La Miranda Action Plan, a lot of debate over level of service and maintaining level of service, and I just want to make sure that this doesn't devolve into those, you can't build housing because it's going to impact level of service. So that it's contrary to the other goals and policies that are in the other policy papers. And so just emphasizing, making sure that the network's more efficient, that it's safer, and not necessarily that it's about maintaining existing level of service, because that could then, again, be counter to everything else that you've developed prior to this category.
Yeah, were there any sections where you feel like we focused on that? I think we tried to stay away from any sort of
well, I guess
surface level. We did mention
improving air
congestion.
quality, for example. I'm just thinking of where the public could go with some of these KPIs and where they went when we developed the La Miranda Action Plan.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions from the group on this paper? Okay, I know we all have kind of half questions, but we don't want to make it take all day. But if there's, I'm sure we could submit comments also after this meeting to just keep us on time. So, We good? Okay, and who's going to take the next paper? Are we done?
I think I'm going to continue
You're
this
going to
one.
continue? Okay.
Yeah. So now we're talking about we've always talked about corridor planning. It's evolved into multimodal corridor planning. And as part of this effort, we're proposing kind of a new terminology called complete corridors. So really looking at our primary corridors around the county and turning them into, technologically advanced multimodal corridors that really connect our communities, both locally and regionally across the county, and connecting, all the destinations that our users want to get to, and then support the the efficient land uses that were envisioned by the growth management program. So goals to get us there: develop multimodal throughways that maximize innovations to serve all users. I'm not sure where that word throughway came from, but anyway, I think it's supposed to be, anyway, maybe you can help me out with that. To implement complete corridor designs focused on diverse infrastructure and safety innovations. So really looking at the cross sections of typical cross sections for our major arterials and minor arterials around the county, and what they could look like, what types of infrastructure and safety improvements could be located within our existing right-of-ways, and then provide regional corridors that are safe, convenient, comfortable, accessible for all modes, but specifically transit and active transportation. So the policies, that corridor design, we should start developing those cross sections of what these could look like, both at a general level or at a very detailed level. Coordinate broadband and fiber optics into our corridors wherever possible, so we can make sure all of our communities have access to, fast service. And that goes along with our countywide broadband study. And then develop new GMP checklist item to require local agencies to incorporate these new corridor design guidelines into their projects and policies or their general plan. But really, adding a requirement to the checklist today to make sure this is happening. So mapping that we're doing, kind of a detailed mapping of our corridors. So we know what's there, and we know what's being connected, and what needs to be connected, where the gaps are. The street typologies similar to place types. When it comes to land use, we would develop complete corridor design criteria for existing right-of-way and areas around the arterials, and then align complete corridor criteria with digital motion standards and guiding principles. And then policies regarding connected communities. We would design all corridors as components of an integrated system that connects communities and eliminates real and perceived physical barriers. Let's see. Once again, looking at safety, environmental sustainability, and social cohesion in all corridor design decisions. So really, these corridors should be where our communities meet. I live right near San Pablo Avenue, and in El Cerrito, Richmond's across the street. But San Pablo is where we all come to hang out. And then this one I think is interesting, to temporarily manage the public rights of way to basically allow for non-vehicular uses at times when they aren't full of cars or don't need to be full of cars. So street fairs, outdoor dining, some of you are doing that already, but, encouraging slow streets, ciclavias, where you're taking over miles of city streets at a time on maybe a Sunday morning or something like that. And then using technology. I think you understand the technology part, making our roads smarter and safer. And then multi-agency coordination. So really building upon what we do at the RTPCs and using those types of forums to really build out these complete corridors, coming up with design guidebooks and then like we said, develop GMP checklist requirements that require that these policy or that these design improvements be incorporated into projects. KPIs, number of miles of complete corridors designed, and the amount of right-of-way specifically set aside for non-vehicle uses, number of traffic signal locations with those smart technologies to sense all users, and then another one related to that digital or countywide smart traffic signal program. So that's it. Happy to take any comments on complete corridors.
Okay, thank you for reading those for us. So, any comments on this paper for Matt today? Silence in the room. I have one. Sorry. Okay, that seemed weird. Member Greenblatt, please.
I think that this idea of developing design guidelines or a design guidebook, a lot of it may not be needed. And I don't want to see us reinvent the wheel that NACTO's already done and AC Transit's working on their design guidelines. And, everybody has design guidelines. I like the idea of policies about data sharing and, things that aren't covered. But my understanding is that a local jurisdiction is going to need to follow Caltrans design guidelines or they can refer to NACTO, but there's so much research that goes into the development of those types of design guidelines that I don't think as an agency we should be using our resources to duplicate that. I think we should just be referring to existing ones, and everybody's situation is so different. I don't know. I don't see the value in trying to decide that.
And maybe it is as simple as pointing to existing guidelines, as our guidance is pointing to existing guidelines, and then filling in those gaps, like you said, that aren't covered. Yeah, we're not trying to reinvent NACTO.
To your point, yeah, we'll address that. That's good. Thanks.
All right, any other questions from the committee? All right, going thrice. Okay, thank you for the presentation, appreciate it. Do we have to call for a public comment at this time for this?
I think Matt might still have next steps.
Next steps.
Are you done, Matt?
Do you have some next steps, Matt?
You guys
we had a couple more slides, but we don't need to go through them.
No, I mean, if it has next steps, is that something you could share with us, or, yeah?
I'll take this, Matt. So we'll receive your comments, incorporate into the document, and continue to vet this through different committees and groups, and we're going to still refine the CTP vision and goal statement. Again, like we mentioned earlier, we have a new consultant team on board, and we're going to be working with those, and things may change, and I think they will change a little bit. But one of the major first deliverables will be developing a blueprint And then that blueprint really lays out the whole process of the CTP and share with you all and everybody the path that we're going to go through to get that CTP done. At the same time, we're going to refine that project list and start packaging the projects into the modeling and do the modeling exercise. And at that point, I think Matt's going to form an ad hoc committee for that modeling effort. And then also, we do have an EIR consultant on board, and they're going to start working on the existing condition process. Next, is there one more slide, Matt? That's it. Again, really appreciate all your comments and really thank you.
Okay, thank you for taking all of our comments, and please feel free to reach out to any of us that you didn't feel like you got the full gist of the comment, or if you want more, and if there's anything that it sounds like you guys are willing to take comments also that weren't talked about today. So thank you, and appreciate your presentation. And should we check for public comment here, Jackie?
Yeah, no public comments written or no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our meeting. Thank you, guys. Happy Bike to Work Day, and